So far we've done number 1, get your friends to become their friends. Number 2, church is evangelistic now as well, so that has to be a new way of thinking. Number 3, get them to tell their story. So it's all about being. Hopefully you're seeing the first hour. It's not a secret method, it's not a silver bullet, it's not a track you pull out of your pocket, but it's all about just being there for your friends and family, and also being kind, understanding, empathetic listeners, trying to hear it from their point of view first. And now in this second hour, maybe things that we can do to communicate the gospel, because so far we haven't explicitly said much about the gospel. We've communicated it in other ways, but we haven't had a chance to tell the gospel. So this brings me to number 4. Now it's your turn to tell your story. So they've told their story. You've treated them like a human being. So hopefully they will reciprocate now and play the game. Play the game and empathetically listen to you. So you've just asked them, hey, how did you become a Buddhist? How does that work? And when they've finished, they should now say, well, tell me about your faith. How did you become a Christian? Were you always a Christian? So this is where we get to share our testimony, in Christian speak, or tell them your story. And this is just as powerfully evangelistic as if you pulled out a track. So you've got to now use your testimony as the way of Trojan horsing the gospel in. And typically, if someone says, how did you become a Christian? This is how you usually begin. Well, I grew up in a Christian family. Not that makes me a Christian, but it certainly helps. But at the age of 16, I had to make a decision for myself, and I gave my life to Jesus. And since then, I'm not saying things are easy, they're challenges, but it's always good to know Jesus there with me. Why have I lost you? Because that is Christian talk. Like Christians know what you're saying. Because there's a whole Christian way of talking. But non-Christian, you lost them on the first line. They had no idea. There's a disconnect. The other thing, think about it, it's abstract. You could have pulled... If we were on an SMBC mission at another church, and I'd written that as my testimony to give, and then the next night was your night to give the testimony, you forgot to turn up with your notes, your testimony, say, Sam, can I borrow yours? Yeah, sure. Here's yours. And then you can get up. I grew up in a Christian family. Not that always makes me a Christian, but it certainly helped. Right from an early age, I knew about Jesus and prayed to Jesus. But at the age of 16, I had to make a decision for myself. And it's abstract. It's impersonal. If you can share a testimony with a friend and they can give the same one verbatim, you have not got a testimony. You've just got an abstract grid that you've been pre-taught in the Christian evangelical world, which has no meaning or traction in the non-Christian world. So I'm going to share with you now how we can actually tell our story. Now, a story has 2 elements: events, things that happen in your life, and a grid that you use to tell the events. Now, if all you have are events, I was born in Hong Kong, my parents moved to Darwin, I went to school and that's just rambling. All right, that's just rambling. And again, I've lost you. Might be personal, but it's rambling. It's not going anywhere. Okay, if all I have is a grid, which I just gave to you, that's abstract. It's impersonal. So you need to somehow merge the two, the grid with the events. And you might be like, can you use a grid? Isn't that violating the story? Well, everyone uses the grid. 2 ways to live is a grid. The gospel writers all had the same access to the events of Jesus, and somehow Matthew, Mark, Luke and John have had different grids. So Matthew has a grid for Jewish audiences. So everyone has different grids for the audience. So you've got to work out your audience and come up with your grid. I'm going to give you a grid to use now. It's it's called the Greek rule of 3s. You can look this up in Wikipedia, but I got this from a friend, an ex-SMBC student called John Gill, and everything works better in 3s. That's what the Greeks thought. So here's 3 parts to something. And so just think, red, white, blue. There was an Englishman, Australian, and an Irishman. There were 3 little pigs. So everything just works well in 3s. I can offer you blood, sweat, tears. So everything's in 3s. So somehow things just work well in 3s. So when it comes to story or song, your 3 parts are intro, body, and then conclusion. That's your basic 3-part grid to a story or a song. Alright, so usually in the intro you establish character. Who are you? What is your mission? So usually by the end of the first third, there's a clear mission. A mission has been defined by the end of the first third. In the body, usually there's crisis, there's drama. The mission looks like it's being thwarted. You're not going to get the happy ending. Then there's a bridge moment where you look back on the original mission, rededicate yourself to the mission, and then there's a conclusion and there's a resolution. And in Hollywood, the resolution is always through violence. You know, there's a gunfight, a car chase, and something blows up and everything's fixed. All right, so just think about this. Okay, James Bond movie always begins with a chase. James is always chasing a bad guy, catches the bad guy kills himself. But you've worked out there's a mission. Hey, there's a bad guy out there, a bigger bad guy, and he's trying to take over the world. There's a mission. We need to thwart the bad guy. So there's drama, there's crisis. James has to go all over the world trying to find this bad guy. And then he gets in the bad guy's lair. This is the bridge moment. He and the girl are captured. They're usually tied up. Why? So the bad guy can recap the mission. So he tells James and the girl, you're so stupid, this is what I'm trying to do. All right, and then James and the girl will rededicate themselves to the mission, get out and blow up the bad guy's lair. And that's your James Bond movie. All right, and okay, just think, any sports movie, introduce the character, Rocky Balboa or a soccer team or whatever. There's a mission, there's a tournament. So now they have to train for the mission. This is crisis moment. I don't think I'm good enough. I can't do it. No, you can do it. You can do it. And then there'll be a training montage. The last training thing. And then the final thing. And it's always threes too. They'll be up in the first period, down in the second period, and they'll come back in the third period with a, last minute shot at goal and they win. Yeah! Okay, so that's a sports movie. A romantic comedy. Intro. Meet the boy, meet the girl. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. There's a mission. They need to fall in love. There'll be drama, there'll be crisis, and then there'll be this bridge moment. Montage. The guy looks back during the montage, replays all that happened. I do love her. Rededicates himself to the mission. Now he has to climb a mountain, swim an ocean, and then it all works out. All right? You can see how that works? All right, Christian music. Verse 1. Verse 2. So now we have a mission. We have a song to sing. All right, and then usually now you go chorus, verse, chorus, bridge. You play a bridge, just before you hit the chorus, there's a bridge moment, and then it goes chorus. All right. So they're the rule of threes for Christian music. So you also, so there's an upping of intensity as well. So it's not just threes. The transitions are just as important as the parts, and the upping intensity is important. So sometimes, when a story or sermon feels flat, it's because there's no increase in crisis. So if you're a sermon writer, use this rule of threes as well. So what this means is, when you tell your testimony, somewhere at the start, you need to introduce your character. Establish your character. Who are you? What drives you? What is your emotional foundation? If you can nail this bit, the rest will work. Nail this bit and the rest will work. What was your mission in life? What is the happy ending you're looking for? And then show the drama, the crisis in your life that happens. Bridge moment. This is when you introduce the gospel. Jesus. He is actually who I'm looking for. I just didn't realise it. Okay, now you give your life to Christ. And then I always leave out this last bit. So sorry, there's a bit that comes after the conclusion called the denouement. Okay, a wrapping up of things in the French and unknotting. And so think of movies. If movies just end with the conclusion, it's just, it's too sudden, isn't it? So they actually need a denouement. So what happens after James and the girl blow up the bad guy's lair? You always find them floating in a boat afterwards, don't you? So that's the denouement. So after Star Wars, they blow up the Death Star. That's the end of the conclusion. And then there's an award ceremony afterwards. That's a denouement. All right, Lord of the Rings, they blow up the mountain, drop the ring down. Then there's an award ceremony again. Okay, there's a denouement. So in your testimony, give them a little denouement. So just a little paragraph on what life looks like now that you're a Christian. And think about when you preach, so for the preachers out there, so your sermon should have an intro, set up a mission, 3 points in the body usually, a bridge moment, conclude it, end high, and then you could just walk off. It feels weird, doesn't it? They need a denouement. And that's what the song leader does. They come up and they give you a song. The song provides a denouement or a prayer. Someone might pray. So, at college there's Friday chapel and there's nothing. There's no denouement after the sermon. It just feels weird, doesn't it? That's because there's no denouement after the sermon. All right, now, what I want you to see is for you to give your testimony to your non-Christian friend, you've got to work out who you are. Who are you? So I've got a paragraph there. You turn over the page. Establish your character. If you nail this bit down, the rest of the story will follow quite naturally. And I'm giving you something from Toy Story. I think almost everyone here is familiar with Toy Story, Woody and Buzz. Okay, so how did they work on Toy Story? The idea that John Lasseter pitched was called Toy Story. It sprang from a belief, which he and Steve Jobs shared, that products have an essence to them, a purpose, a mission for which they were made. If the object were to have feelings, these would be based on its desire to fulfill its essence. The purpose of a glass, for example, is to hold water. If it had feelings, it would be happy when full and sad when empty. The essence of a computer screen is to interface with a human. The essence of a unicycle is to be ridden in a circus. As for toys, their purpose is to be played with by kids. And thus their existential fear is of being discarded or upstaged by newer toys. So a buddy movie pairing an old favourite toy, Woody, with a shiny new one, Buzz, would have an essential drama to it, especially when the action revolves around the toys being separated from their kid. The original treatment began. Everyone has had the traumatic childhood experience of losing a toy. Our story takes the toy's point of view as he loses and tries to regain the single thing most important to him, to be played with by children. This is the reason for the existence of toys. It is the emotional foundation of their existence. So see how that worked for Woody in Toy Story? So you got to think to yourself, okay, that's Woody. What is my emotional foundation? Who am I? What is my purpose? What is my mission? What would make me happy if it was fulfilled? Sad if unfulfilled? What is your happy ending in life? So to write your testimony to be able to give to your non-Christian friend, you need to work out who are you? You need to psychoanalyze yourself. Who are you? So I'll share with you my one. Here's how my testimony would sound like. So again, I could have given you what's your story? Okay, what's your story? I grew up in a Christian family, knew Jesus ever since I was a kid. Okay, lost you. How about you begin like this? Well, I've always been a high achiever. That's got you, hasn't it? Because now you're knowing something about me. It's concrete. So this is like a 3-minute testimony. I was always a high achiever. And then you've got to give examples. You can't just throw a statement out there. Give me some concrete examples. For example, in primary school, I was that kid who stuck up his hand. What do I do when I'm finished, miss? In high school, when I got 99 out of 100, I would fixate on that one mark that was missing. And I studied hard at high school, got into medicine at Sydney Uni, top 1% of the state. And it was important that others knew I was a high achiever. And getting awards was thus important. But it was important not just for other people to see me as perfect. I also had to see myself as perfect. So that's my intro. That's my mission in life, to be perfect. I'm a high achiever. All right, now let's come to the crisis, the drama that would play out. Here's the problem with being a high achiever. You're only as good as your last success. There's always another mountain to climb, and you remember your failures more than your successes. For example, always got to give an example. For example, when I was a doctor, I would have attended over 100 ward rounds, but there's only one ward round I do remember. That's one where they put up the x-rays of the hip that I had operated on, where the screws and plates had all been put in the wrong places. See, I remember my failures more than my successes. That's the problem. That's a drama with being a high achiever. Bridge moment. So being a high achiever is a curse, because I always had to achieve success to be somebody in my own eyes. But what can be done? Now, I'd always known about Jesus since I was a kid. I'd always known that he was an amazing guy, Son of God who did miracles. I'd always known that he loved me, he died for me on the cross. But maybe what I didn't realise was this. He is perfect, so I don't have to be. He's the high achiever, so I don't have to be. So if I put my trust in Jesus, not only am I trusting he'll save me from my sins, not only am I trusting that he'll get me to heaven, but I'm also seeing that all my achievements are worth nothing in comparison. So I don't have to be perfect anymore. Instead, his achievements for me make me who I am today. All right, so now you need to resolve this crisis in your life. Conclusion, this came to a big decision 15 years ago. I had to choose to keep working as a doctor, which is a perfect job in the eyes of Asians, or choose to tell people about Jesus instead. Now, being a doctor is the perfect job. It pays the bills, dinner parties, people want to listen to you, bank managers want to get to know you. It means people see you as successful, somebody, a high achiever. But because I now had Jesus, I didn't need to be a doctor anymore to see myself as perfect or for others to see me as perfect. Instead, I had Jesus. He had achieved everything I could ever possibly want for me already. And in his eyes, I am somebody, and I don't need to chase awards from other people anymore. Denouement, what is the new norm? What is life like now with Jesus? Ever since I made that decision to give up medicine, my friends have noticed the changes in my life. My roommate says I don't drive like an idiot anymore. Even I've noticed I don't try to dominate the conversation at parties like I used to. In other words, I didn't realise it before, but being a high achiever also makes you a jerk because you're so insecure. But now, because I've surrendered my life to Jesus, I'm secure for the first time in my life, and I don't need success anymore to be happy. I am somebody in Jesus' eyes and now also in mine. All right, so that's what my new sample testimony could sound like. All right, and see what I've done there. Not only am I giving you the gospel, get your sins forgiven, go to heaven, but showing you actually what it looks like in everyday life. See, the whole trouble with our traditional way of telling the gospel, say 2 ways to live, put your trust in Jesus, sins forgiven, and one day he'll come back for you. But what do I do now? What do I do in between the cross and the second coming? What does life look like with Jesus? But this way is showing how the gospel fulfills who you are, your emotional foundation, your existential drive, your fears, your ambitions. What is the happy ending that you're looking for that Jesus now gives you? Now, we don't have time, but what I've done is I've given you a sample that SMBC students gave me for an evangelism assignment a few years ago. So the first one is from a student. She grew up in a Christian family. So if you had asked her to give her testimony, she would have done the same one I'd done. I grew up in a Christian family, knew about Jesus as long as I remember, but at the age of 16 I made a decision for myself. Lost you. And then for half an hour she had nothing. She had a blank page. And I kept saying to her, who are you? Who are you? What is your existential drive? What do you need to be fulfilled? And she unlocked it. She finally worked out she was a perfectionist. So that was what drove her. She was a perfectionist. So you see how that works out. So as you read it, try to work out what is the intro, what sets up the mission, what is the body, where does the bridge come in, where's the conclusion, where's the denouement in her story. You don't have time for that now. And then over the page, I've given you one of a guy who grew up in a non-Christian family, and his is very good. So as you read it, try to work out what his mission was, what does he need to be fulfilled, what was his crisis, where's the bridge moment. There's this very clear bridge moment in his story. Conclusion, denouement. And so I've given you a story. So if you write that out, what you can have now, you can condense that to be the 30-second elevator version. Hi, how did you become a Christian? Well, I've always been a high achiever. I've always needed to be somebody, not just in other people's eyes, but my own eyes. Now, I've always known about Jesus, but I guess I didn't really realise until I read the book of Romans that not just that Jesus dies for me, but because of Jesus, I don't have to be perfect to be somebody in God's eyes. And so by giving my life to Jesus, now I can be free just to be who I am, apart from the achievements. And I know I'm somebody in God's eyes and also my own eyes. Can you see that? So it's very different. So that's like a 30-second elevator version. Then they might ask you for, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, okay, now you can give them the 5-minute version. But I like it. If you talk to her and she's giving you a 5-minute Buddhist version, you got permission to go into your 5-minute Christian version. All right, so that's one way of telling the gospel. And so another way, so what you can do is even if you're running youth group ministry, schools ministry, whatever, get the Christians for their homework to write a testimony using that grid. And then for your lunchtime meetings, they could share their stories using that grid. And you might have to coach them, help them, like sit down with them. Okay, what is your happy ending? What are you insecure about?